you everybody for introducing yourself. Amy, I'll go ahead and let you get started and tell us about your business and your journey to today.
Okay. I do have this PowerPoint only to keep me kind of on track, otherwise I go off on tangents a little bit. My ADD medicine has kicked in, so that will help. I'll just tell you who we are before I kind of get into what we are and all that stuff. I'm Amy. I am a master's prepared educator and a registered nurse. Before I was a nurse, I was a graphic designer for about 20 years, then went to nursing school. After nursing school, I worked in Crete at the hospital there. It's a critical access hospital, which just means we got to do everything from birth to death. While I was there, I got my master's and then started teaching at Southeast Community College in the LPN program, and that's where I met Erin. Erin Putney is my best friend and business partner. Her background is oncology, infusion, and trauma ICU. While we were working together, we just really bonded over death and kids and pets and all kinds of other things. And we have strengths and weaknesses that are kind of the opposite of each other, but we really appreciate each other's strengths and weaknesses and work well with them. We both left SCC at the same time. I went back to bedside and started working as a hospice nurse with one of the agencies in town. And Erin started teaching at Methodist in Omaha. So while she has been teaching in Omaha, that leaves her a lot of commute time. And so we've been on the phone a lot. And one of those drive homes for her was after kind of a bad day in clinicals, where you take students to the hospital and practice. The story she told me was that a family was there and in turmoil. The patient was, I don't know, late 80s, early 90s gentleman. He was on a ventilator and had all kinds of other medical, interventions going on, and family didn't know what to do. The wife was, distraught. And Erin said to her, well, do you know what his wishes were? Do you know, would he want all of these interventions? And she said, I don't know. This came on so suddenly and we never had time to talk about it. And Erin's first thought is, you've been married for 60 years and you've never had time to talk about this. And so that conversation with her then unloading on me is like, we were deciding, after what I had seen in the ER and what she's seen in the ICU, like we've got to do something to help families. What can we do before they reach our doorway? And so as educators, we came up with a curriculum to teach people about medical interventions, but way before they get to that hospital point. Doing these things around a kitchen table with a beverage and a snack is a lot easier on everybody. A little bit more about us. I have 2 kids. Erin has 4. She has 2 dogs, a cat, a lizard, a snake. Sometimes her ex-husband's dog, a boyfriend, his 3 kids, her mom, all in one house, and then girlfriends of the older kids. I have 2 kids. My older is already out of the house and my younger is 15. We have 2 cats and that's it. And I have a boyfriend. So a little bit about us. So what do? We do medical education and planning. I used to say we do end-of-life medical education and planning, but that turns people off. So I have learned that what we do is medical education and planning. So we don't get quite as much of the, I don't want to talk about those things anymore, but once kind of people hear what we do and what the content of our seminar is, they get it. So why do we do this? Why on earth would we want to talk about these medical interventions and death and dying and having a good death? I explained a little bit about the one scenario, but we have dozens and hundreds of those kinds of stories where families have trauma and guilt because they haven't had these conversations. But having the conversation is not as helpful if you don't have the information about the medical interventions themselves. How can you make an educated decision if you don't know what a feeding tube is, right? So we do this also for two kind of main reasons that are show up in Erin and I's personality. I am a plan ahead person. I'm a little bit type A. I like to, my calendar is planned out for months and months and months. Erin will call me sometimes the day of something that we're doing together and say, okay, where are we meeting again? And what time am I supposed to be there? And what am I supposed to wear? And all the things. So I plan ahead. It lowers my anxiety. That's true for my calendar. That's true for who I'm going to have lunch with tomorrow. And that's true for my funeral. Some people plan their funeral ahead, and that's great. But it just lowers my anxiety to know that my children know what I want. Oops, sorry, didn't mean to bonk that. So it gives me peace of mind, like I said, and you're making informed decisions, right? Erin is very much a feeling person. She's an empath, and so because of that, she has to process all of her own feelings and recognize when other people are having feelings that she can feel, which is a hard skill to manage. But after our parties, people report feeling empowered, they feel more confident, and they feel informed. And that really is our goal. Our goal is to put ourselves out of business. It really is. I do have vulnerable listed up there. Sometimes these parties can be a way for folks to process what happened to a family member or loved one before. So they come to us with stories, and they know that when we are in this space together, they are safe to share their stories, to ask questions, to get reassurance that no matter what happened before, it's fine. It's fine. You made the best decision with the information you had at the time. But let's process now what you know now, because when we know better, we do better. And so processing those feelings can lead to some vulnerable times, but everybody knows that it's a safe place. So how do we do this? Well, we have parties, because it's way more fun to have a party than a class, right? Would everyone agree? Yeah. So Sips and Wishes, we named it that because we want folks, when they host a party, to have some drinks and snacks. And the drinks can be whatever you want, from lemonade and iced tea all the way to whiskey and anything in between. Whatever you want there and whatever your guests are comfortable having. They have some snacks, and that could be a big bag of Colby Ridge popcorn, and that could be, like my sister had all of the bougie, like charcuterie boards and fruits and all the things. So whatever you want to do as a host, you can do. Our in-home parties are like what I would call our regular sized parties. They're 4 to 12 people. We like to keep them small because, like I said, they're a vulnerable time for people, and it just leaves people room to ask questions and share their stories. We can do larger gatherings in church basements, in senior living communities, and we do those as 13 to 20 people, and then usually Erin and I both go to those. But we can also do private consultations because not everybody is comfortable having these conversations with other people there. So 1 to 3 people is a doable size too. But you guys all know, like, when you're an entrepreneur, you can make up your own rules. So it's our company. If someone has ideas for other ways to have parties or pay for parties, we're all ears. We can make up our own rules because it's our company. So our education includes 4 different body systems and interventions that go with each of those body systems. As nurses, we know what good, sound medical information is. And so we talk about the heart, the cardiovascular system. We talk about the lungs, the kidneys, and the GI tract. So we give evidence-based practice information. We bring actual equipment with us to the parties so that people can see what a feeding tube looks like and touch it. And I promise they've never been used. They're just outdated from a medical standpoint, but for demonstration purposes, it's nice to be able to see what some of these things are in real life. Because the more you watch medical shows, the more you can see what's not real. And my children will not watch medical shows with me anymore because I say, well, that's not real. And they're like, Mom, stop. So, but it's fun to be able to point some of those things out.
Let's create some latitude.
Hire a medical person to be a consultant.
Too expensive. Puts it over budget.
Well, then you figure out ways to cut your craft table or something, because we can tell. So the question I get a lot of times is, who should come to these parties? You know, because my sister is a good example on the response I got when I told her what we were going to do with this, because she's 4 years younger than me, and so at the time she would have been about 45. And she said, this is a really great idea, for Mom and for Dad and for, the older folks. And they said, Elisa, are you going to drive back to Omaha today? And she said, yeah. And I said, what happens if you get into a car accident? Is Drew going to know what to do? He absolutely is not. The man can't handle splinters for his children, which is why I am her medical power of attorney and he is not. But I mean, it just goes to show you that we're all vulnerable to death. We're all, our human body can only withstand so much. So whether we have comorbidities, disease processes that might take us earlier rather than later, this really is for everybody because we are all going to die. And did everyone catch my joke on the anticipated deaths? Can everyone read that? Thank you. Nurses have kind of a dark sense of humor, so that goes with the territory. Can you read that okay? So it's anticipated deaths. People who will die are in the dark blue, and then the light blue is also people who will die. So it really is everybody. Thank you, yes. I thought it would mix things up a little bit. Okay, so after each party, I have participants fill out an evaluation form. And the first part of it is, before the party, I felt, and there's about a dozen words that they can choose from. And these are the results. Oops, I went too far. What's happening? There, before the party. So hopeful, apprehensive, calm, neutral, confused. Interested is by far the most picked. Awkward and nervous. So those all make sense, right? Because you don't know what really you're walking into at the beginning of a party because no one else does this. If I came in and said, I sell hammers, you would all know what that meant. But when you say, I'm gonna do what? Medical planning for what? So people are interested, but they're often kind of nervous and don't really know what to expect. You had a question?
How do you word the invitation?
Yeah, so I don't know what the exact right wording is yet. We LLC'd about 2 years ago, and I'm still working on that. Because you can't sum it up in only a couple of words. So if anyone has any bright ideas, I would love to hear them. You can email them to me. I'll give you my card. It usually requires a little bit more explanation than just medical education and planning. If you say that it's nurses that do this, we come in and talk about ventilators and things like that. It can be a little. Saying that it's going to be a little uncomfortable, but really helpful. It's a gift to your family. There's lots of little ways to say things, but I don't know what that exact right elevator pitch is yet. How's that for a challenge? Everybody's, that's your challenge for today. Okay, I gave you all donuts, so now you got to help me out. Okay, so after the party, I felt optimistic, hopeful, comforted, empowered is by far the most circled word. Something is happening. Okay. Thankful, energized, interested, and excited. The excited one always kind of is interesting to me, but lots of people pick that. I don't know if it's because, now they know what they want, and so they're kind of relieved, but I would not pick, I don't know.
That is not a word that I would
Right.
feel like that would come into the top.
Right. But okay, that's great. I'm excited that you're excited. I'm excited. I like it. I have fun. Okay, so how can you help? Let me know if this flashes forward again. The obvious way is we're a young company, so tell people about us. We have a website, an email address, we're on Facebook. I come out and do things like this all the time. So share our new company with people. We're locally owned here in Lincoln. I go all over the place, Omaha, and to smaller communities, and do these info sessions. My car drives everywhere, okay? So I can really do this anywhere. If you have family members who are maybe hesitant to talk about some of this stuff, let's talk. See if you want to host a party, okay? The not so obvious way is I want you to ask one person today, what tubes do you want at the end of life? And if they don't have an answer, we probably should talk. Because there's a lot of tubes, a lot of options. People have a lot of holes. And if you don't have a hole, we're going to make one. So that's your quest today, is ask one person what tubes they want at end of life. Yes, Quentin?
You know my one that I want. Okay.
We're good.
The tequila tube.
Yep.
I didn't know that was an option.
If that's
Oh, yeah.
an option,
They're all
I would pick that one too.
Yes.
Too.
Okay, so I just like this little picture of Aaron and I. We're just really cute. I can't get my thing we're just cute in that picture. But this is a party at my sister's house. So this is what an in-home party can look like. Very relaxed. Some people were sitting on the floor. We had snacks. We had a lot of wine around her fireplace. She wanted it cozy. She didn't want her husband there, which I was interested in. Like, all of these women have significant others and husbands, and I said, why did you not want Drew here? And she said, because I wanted to focus on my feelings and not worry about what he was thinking and feeling, which made a lot of sense. It is good to have your loved ones hear the information and talk together, because that's how they're going to know what you want. So if you end up wanting to do something but it's not with family members, then you need to go tell them later your what and your why, so that they know, because they can be your voice when yours no longer works. Questions? Yeah.
Question.
Yeah.
So, one, I have a lot of medical professionals in my family, and so I'm wondering how that goes with other people who are in the room that have the medical background, how that's navigated. And then two, what's the follow-up of it? So people say their wishes, is there a follow-up of, and they go fill out their will, or they do those other things after the party?
Yeah, so the first question of, like, if there are other medical people in the room, how do we navigate that? It depends. If they are, radiology technicians, that's going to be a little bit different than if they're nurses or physicians. Even some physicians are specialized. And so they might not know even, if they're OB doctors, they might not know what some of these things are in practical terms when it comes to end of life. And so we just...
Individualize it.
Absolutely, absolutely. We do have a curriculum that we have, but we have so much flexibility in personalizing that even if there are no medical people there, but someone has COPD, for example, we might spend a little bit more time on the respiratory section. So it's small, like I said before, it's our company, we can do whatever we want. So we do personalize, and if these medical professionals have things to add, their own stories, that's great. That helps you remember things even better when you have stories to go with it, which is why we tell so many stories. The other thing I would say about medical professionals is physicians specifically do not learn in medical school hardly anything about end of life. which is distressing. It's something that every single one of us is going to go through at some point in our life. And they get 0 to maybe 12 hours in medical school on end of life. So some are amazing that they've learned along the way how to have conversations, but some are going to come in and look at your shoes and talk to you about death on a bell curve. It's distressing. You had another question in there. Oh, what's the follow-up? So the party is the education part, and very thoughtful conversations, not only about the medical interventions, but also about medical power of attorney and how to document. So we don't document during the party because the party itself is about 2 hours long. If you want to document, we talk about different tools to document, some that are free, downloadable online, some that are like $5 for the 5 Wishes booklet. You can go to an attorney and do advanced directives and what that means, because there's a lot of terms that get thrown around out there, and so we talk about all of those things so people know what they're asking for. But none of the tools that I could find had enough caveats to satisfy me. So Erin and I created our own. It's called the Preferences Packet, and it goes through 7 or 8 different medical scenarios that you can say, okay, if this is my scenario, this is what I want. But if this is the scenario, this is what I want. Because being in like a medically induced coma after a car accident is very different than end-stage Alzheimer's, right? And so my answer to those questions on do I want any of these interventions should be very different. So that the Preferences Packet has that, and then it also has what I call like a buffet of medical interventions, because sometimes you want something, but only if it's going to be temporary versus a permanent solution. So we go through all of those. And then there's a section on comfort, which is kind of my favorite section. Because comfort means different things to different people. And comfort for me is like, I want my feet rubbed at end of life. I want you to play 80s music in the background, and I want to have vanilla aromatherapy. So there's a whole like page and a half of different comfort things. Right this minute, it's not a legally binding document, but I'm working towards that. If I need time to do that, and I keep doing things like this because it's fun. But we're working towards getting that to be a legally binding document where you can mark your medical power of attorney in it, and with a witness or with a notary, it can be legally binding. But again, like the document isn't as important as the conversation, because no one's going to be like, okay, wait, hold on 1 second. I'm going to run home and get this out of the filing cabinet, and then I'll bring it back to the hospital, and then you can know what the wishes are. It's having the conversation with who you pick as your medical power of attorney that is the critical piece, because they're most likely going to be there, or they're going to be called to come in and be there. And if you've had the conversation with them, then you can answer the questions on, well, should we do this, or should we do this, or should we do this? It's a good tool. It's a good conversation starter, and you should go through it with your person. But even advanced directives that a lawyer does, again, unless you have some dynamics in your family where someone's going to say, well, mom said she didn't want this, and you'd be like, no, I'm her medical power of attorney. We talked about this. Yes, she does want, whatever. You don't necessarily need some of those official documents that are $300 an hour to get. Okay. You had a question?
Well, kind of to dovetail on what Stacy asked, have you been successful with establishing affiliations or alliances with medical practices here in town? I
have been trying. So if anyone has ins, I would love that.
I was going to say, I'd love to connect you with the dialysis center that my mother-in-law went through, so she would have had this before she got on dialysis, because we lost her 3 weeks later.
Yeah.
And if we would have had these conversations before the dialysis, it would have been a difference maker for our family.
Right. Yeah. I'm sorry that was your scenario. That's hard. Yeah, it is. And not to their fault, but they don't have time. They should take the time It's critical. But they don't. And so that's why we started this company. So yeah, if anybody has any connections, like that's how we're going to grow our visibility, is to connect me with people that you know that can help us, and help you and help Lincoln and help outlying communities. Yes, I would love that. Thank you. You had a question back here?
My wife says hi.
Hi.
I thought you looked familiar, so I said no. I said, you know Amy? She said, oh yeah, she's great. So her name's Heather. You worked with her at Tabitha. Exactly. Long time. It's been like 10 years.
I didn't work at Tabitha.
You didn't work at Tabitha?
Huh.
Madonna?
I took students to Madonna.
Okay. Well, we got you mixed up with somebody else then.
I have one of those faces. It's okay.
Okay.
It happens to me all the time.
She also wanted to know if you were hiring.
I'll talk with you afterwards.
So unfortunately, I think everybody's ran into a similar situation where there just wasn't planning. I know I've been there a few times in my life, where you're looking across the table at your dad or a sibling saying, "Oh, I think your mom wanted to be cremated." And that's obviously going to the smaller voice section of the pie chart. Yeah. But I guess the thing that's always frustrated me is you just sign this generic DNR form, and when you're in a situation like the car accident, when you're in a coma, somebody brings up, oh, DNR form, and you're like, whoa, wait a second. But according to that form is just so generic,
Right.
It doesn't give you that latitude.
Right. Again, that's why we created this. And if you are 90 and you want a DNR form, I will happily support you in that decision. If you are 24 and healthy and active, then you probably shouldn't have a DNR form unless you know something that I don't know. I'll say a couple things about the DNR form. Yes, it is do not resuscitate. That doesn't mean do not treat. So if you're in a car accident, but you have a DNR form, you can still get your broken leg fixed. You can still get antibiotics. What they're just not going to do is if your heart stops, they won't do chest compressions and put you on a ventilator. That's all that means. Okay? So you can have a DNR, but still get treatment for stuff. You can still take your medications, all those kinds of things. When you should have a DNR is up for discussion with you, for you, and that's part of the party too. Yep.
On that topic,
Yeah.
I have a friend who recently passed away, and I was talking with his wife, and she said, and he had some serious health issues.
Bless you.
He was in his late 60s, was having some serious health issues and had a DNR, and they ignored it in the hospital.
Right.
How do you deal with situations like that?
Yeah, they're hard. As your nurse, that's hard. So if you have a DNR and it's signed by a physician and it is legal, everything is up to snuff, people carry it around, it's plastered to your forehead, your medical power of attorney can override that DNR. We don't like it. But if you come into the hospital and your power of attorney is standing right there and they are your legal power of attorney, and we can say to them, your mom or whoever did not want to be resuscitated. These were her wishes. This is, the damage that we're going to do to her body is not going to make whatever stopped her heart better. But if they insist on us doing chest compressions, we will do it. Because they're the ones who are going to sue us, not the mom. Because they would be like, you killed my mom, I told you you had to. Do the chest compressions. So picking your medical power of attorney is about the most important part of the whole process. You have to pick someone who's going to do what you want, not what they want. And then you have to tell them what your wishes are. Okay? I have literally had a daughter say to me, I am her medical power of attorney. I know what she wants, but I'm going to do what I want. I've literally had a daughter tell me that before. And it's so frustrating because, you know, I can see your mom is in pain. She is miserable. She's uncomfortable. Please let me do something to help her. And the daughter, you know, for all of the education we try and do, refuses until she's ready. Well, that's a bummer topic. Somebody asked something more fun. What's your question?
Have you read the book Being Mortal?
I'm reading it right now.
Okay, and how, so I really like what you guys are doing because my wife and I read that book a number of years ago, and I've tried to have conversations and like a book review with like friends and stuff like
great.
that. But it doesn't usually go so well, you know, and so I think you've come up with a fun way to talk about it.
Thank you. I think so. I'm super passionate about it, and I get excited, and so, you know, having other people understand what the value is. We are there to facilitate great conversations and educate people on what all these things are, and then advocate for whatever it is that you want.
I'd be curious to know your thoughts on that book after you're done.
Yeah. Yes. Well, let's talk. I'll give you my card, and we can talk later. Yeah. Yeah.
What does your clientele usually look like? 'Cause, I mean, I've had some of these questions before, but I mean, I'm nowhere near that stage of life yet, or I hope so at least.
Right, knock on wood, right? But, you know, I don't know your personality, but my older son is 23, right? You guys are the ones who end up in the trauma ICU.
Yeah.
Because you ski in and out of trees.
We're stupid.
And you, I wasn't going to say that, but you take risks that I'm not going to take because you think you're immortal, right? And the traumatic ones, the ones we don't expect, are the hardest on the families and the loved ones. You know, you're laying there maybe totally unaware, blissfully unaware of the trauma that your mom is going through, right? When I did stuff at Madonna, I would take students there and we'd have lots of conversations because there are patients of all ages there. And I am telling you, I am not going to do that to my son. Trach Peg Madonna is not for me. So our clientele is really, it really is anybody who's old enough to have the conversation. I know, like we said, you know, your thought is senior living communities, and I do a lot of info sessions and parties in senior living facilities, and they invite their kids, their families, and it's a great conversation because their kids a lot of times are my age, and people my age, you know, play tennis and end up on the ground with your heart stopped. One of my really good friends was playing tennis with her tennis coach. Very physically fit guy, right? His heart stopped. And he will never be the same. He survived, but they didn't start CPR right away because they didn't know what to do. But he will never be the same, right? So, but kids your age, I'm sorry, I said it too.
We're used to it.
People your age should come to this too, because you don't know. You know, you don't know if there's some weird heart defect that you've been living with your whole life and just didn't know until something happens. It's also good for you to hear what your mom and dad want and don't want. And this day and age too, like people your age are sometimes the caregivers for their grandparents. And so knowing what grandma and grandpa want and don't want is really helpful in having these conversations. So really it's I love doing intergenerational parties. They're my favorite.
To give you an idea, as a life insurance agent, to give you a life insurance policy right now, relatively inexpensive, but it's going to be 20 to 30% higher than the young lady that's sitting next to you. When you get into Medicare premiums, your 65-year-old female is going to be, again, 20-30% less expensive than the 65-year-old male is. And to emphasize what she's really saying is, I'm the 6th oldest of 32 grandchildren. My sister was the oldest. 3 of them have passed away before the age of 50. I am now the 3rd living oldest grandchild out of those 32. You don't know, and you gotta let somebody. When I said, we didn't know, whether or not my sister wanted to be cremated. Nobody knew. She was 51 years old when she passed away.
Yeah.
And we're all just like, I don't know, cremate her, do we get buried? You don't know the answers. Her kids, she had 4 kids. The 4 kids didn't even know the answers to the questions. So having the conversation is very, very important.
Yep.
This kind of piggybacks off of the intergenerational. When we stopped care for my dad, that was his wish, and so it was easy. We knew what he wanted. We knew his limits of interventions that he was comfortable with. But it was hard on some of the grandchildren that were there in the hospital, and some of them were teenagers, some of them were younger. And then I'm just thinking about my own son, who's 13. When do you start to have those conversations with that age group?
I look at it the same way I do parenting. I have 2 boys, and when my older was 4 or 5, we were getting ready to go to the swimming pool. And so we were getting his swimming suit on and putting on sunblock, and I said, nobody should touch anything that's covered by a swimming suit. No one should look at that. Dr. Johnson can look. I can look and make sure you're clean, make sure you don't have any bug bites, that kind of thing. But otherwise, no one should really look at anything covered by a swimming suit. And he understood that. I have educated kids in the hospice house that I work in as little as 5. You can say things that are age appropriate, and I think plain language is the best. When you say things like, Grandpa's just asleep and he's going to go to sleep forever pretty soon, like they're going to be scared to go to bed because they're going to think they're not going to wake up. So there are a lot of resources out there too on how to have conversations with kiddos, but I think, age appropriate and plain language is best. And sometimes they just want an answer too. It's like, why isn't Grandma going to get up and go to the bathroom? Well, she has a tube. She has a tube going in right here, so she doesn't have to get up. Isn't that great? She doesn't even have to get up out of bed. So that's all, they just need a little bit of information. And if you want to have something where your kids are present, I will gear the presentation so that they understand and answer their questions. Some of the answers are more uncomfortable for adults than they are for kids. Yeah. Yeah.
So as a business, and you're probably getting to this, how do you make money?
People pay us.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Right. Sorry, I didn't mean to be flippant. That was. Yeah.
It's like, okay, this is huge. Really. In fact, are you familiar with self-education classes?
No.
Okay, self-education courses, this would be perfect for. So you put out a course and people pay for that course. So you're able to get it out to more people in the world, and you're making money every time the person, say, in your class would probably be worth, I don't know, probably anywhere from $100 to $1,000 or more, because people want to know this information. People need to know this information. So if it's out there for the public, you're reaching more people.
Right.
So
how do I facilitate the conversations, though, and answer people's questions as they come up during the party?
As in on the course? The course you would just record.
Right, but that's where when we have the parties, it's just like this.
Right.
It's very interactive the whole time.
With the course, they can email you. And
Okay.
They can get more information.
Okay.
And whatnot. It's not just okay, this is it. We're never going to contact you.
Right, okay.
You've got your contact information to know more. And my guess is you'd have more than one course for the fact that there is so much information.
Yeah.
You can't put it in one tiny little thing.
Yeah.
Something like the great courses or something like that online.
Yes.
Yeah.
It depends on the course platform, but you can have your content ready to go and you can show up live, so you can answer those questions.
Oh, okay. That's
So
cool.
you could run it synchronously or asynchronously. It's up to how you sell your.
Stacy can do that.
Yeah, we need to talk some more then, huh? Okay. So to answer your question, let me go back to this party. Okay, so in-home parties are the 4 to 12 people, and that is $300 is list price. The Lincoln discount is $200. If you have a large gathering, that is 13 to 20 people. List price is $500. Lincoln price is $350. If you have a private consultation, that is $500. That's 1 to 3 people, and that includes the preferences packet. I talked about the preferences packet, didn't I? Okay, so if you want the preferences packet after a party, immediately following, I'm already there, we're already in the mode, it's $25 a person, and I usually cap that at $100 because it doesn't matter if I do it for 4 or all 12. If I come back later and do the preferences packet with you at another time, it's $75 a person. People can either pay the whole, if your host wants to pay the whole fee, they can, or we can do a combination of they'll pay part and each person pays part, or each person can just pay a per person fee. I'm flexible, however anybody wants to do it. If someone has new ideas. We did have a party that was paid for by one of the non-medical home health companies for residents at a senior living community. So it was sponsored by them. I'm adding their logo to our documents that we hand out during the parties, and they got a little blurb at the beginning and things like that.
That was the question I was going to ask you, is, since this is my field, is that something where I can sponsor?
Yep.
Or talk one of the carriers and sponsor for me?
Yep, absolutely.
We need to talk.
Okay.
We need to-
Yeah, I would be happy to. Yeah,
I don't mean to ask a lawyerly question.
you can ask a lawyerly question.
Do you only operate in Nebraska, or do you?
Nope.
Everywhere?
My car goes everywhere.
Okay.
Yep. So as a nurse, I cannot practice outside of Nebraska. I'm not part of the compact. But this is different. I'm not practicing as an RN. So yes, I can go anywhere. I actually did one over Zoom with a friend in Malibu. Doing over Zoom can work. It's not as ideal because, like I said, I do bring equipment that you get to look at and touch and feel. And when it's over Zoom, it doesn't work quite as well. I held it up to the camera and I actually got the husband gagged at one point. If there is a party that I'm at and one sister lives in Connecticut, we can Zoom in her, and that can work. It's just not ideal to have the whole party, be like Hollywood Squares, so.
Attorneys might be another, maybe you already pursued that too, connecting with attorneys.
Yeah, because they do estate planning. Yeah, so I'm trying to get in. People have told me Andrew Loudon's name over and over and over again, and I've met with one of his partners, Brett, and they're super busy right now, and so but she was very excited, and so I'm continuing that path. But yeah, if you know other estate planners who would want me to come in, I can do an info session for all the lawyers, just so they know that this resource is here. I would be happy to do that.
Churches would be another option.
Funeral directors?
Yep. Connect me with people, because I've been trying, me emailing them or cold calling them isn't as effective as when people get personal connections. So if you have people, please do that. But one of our very first parties was at First Plymouth. So they had a class there and invited whoever wanted to come from their congregation. It was really great.
So what did you do for pricing on that one?
That was our she caught me off guard, and I shouldn't have been caught off guard. I was talking to her about this, but we hadn't, I'm a nurse and not an entrepreneur, so I'm kind of making this up as we go. Their very first party was $250.
Okay.
So it wasn't that out of, but yeah, I just threw a number out. And she didn't blink, so I'm like, okay, well, that went well. I know, it is. And like, the pricing too, there's no one to compare to. No one else does this. So Aaron and I would just as soon just give it away because that we're teachers and nurses, and that's what we do is we educate and we're passionate about it. But it was way easier to set up as an LLC than a nonprofit. Also, I don't know how to write grants. I don't want to fundraise, so we've played with the pricing and started doing a Lincoln discount because Lincoln thinks I charge too much and Omaha thinks I don't charge enough. So that's why the Lincoln discount is now a thing, and we'll just keep with this for a little while and see how it goes. And if I don't get any parties for 2 years, then we'll talk about pricing again. But it's all perspective too, right? It's all from where you come from and what you're used to paying. And what gets my goat is my sister is an attorney in Omaha, and I know how much she gets an hour, and I have 4 years more education than she does even. I have 2 bachelor's and a master's. So to know that someone balks at our pricing structure frustrates me because you don't think twice about paying a lawyer, sorry, but some of the time it's boilerplate, right? You just copy and paste documents from Did I give away your secret? I'm sorry. I've worked with enough lawyers. Yeah, but I've worked with enough lawyers that I know. But it's valuable. And so it hurts me to not be valued sometimes, but also I'd also just give it away if I, just as soon do that.
We empathize with you as entrepreneurs.
Yes.
Yeah.
Entrepreneur said you're
You said
gonna.
you just make it up as you go along.
Yeah.
That's kind of
Well, you might listen to Christy Wright. She's got some amazing stuff out there. And she
Okay.
talks about this very subject about, this person, well, should I lower my price? Well, you always end up getting bit in the behind if you keep lowering your price.
Yeah.
Because you're worth this. People are going to balk at it. People are going to say you're not whatever enough. What do you feel comfortable with? So, and where are your business cards, by the way?
Yeah, in Amy's office.
Okay.
Yep.
Locked up safe.
Locked up safe. Yeah, I have my whole bag full of stuff, and that's where they are. I forgot them over there. So I brought a big stack, so I hope to not leave with any of them.
I don't think you will.
It's super exciting, you guys. I love coming and talking about this stuff. Thank you. So there's another cute picture of us. That was taken at Wyuka because we're nurses and have a sick sense of humor.
Any other questions for Amy? This is
Yes.
great.
Yeah.
Really quick question.
Yeah.
Do you ever find that the clients you work with have trouble making a decision on? Because by the time you have given them all the information, then.
Yeah. Especially after discussions. I mean, they don't share sometimes what their decisions are, at least not in front of me, and that's okay. It's not my business. If they need help letting their people know, then that's why I'm there to advocate. Because no matter what your decision is, if you are making an educated decision, I will advocate for you. And again, telling your people can be hard. That's why having your family, or at least who you want as your medical power of attorney there, is so helpful. Because they're hearing the information too, and they're hearing the discussions, and not having realized that when I do CPR, I'm going to break your ribs. Well, do you want me to do that to your 90-year-old mom? She doesn't want it. So, yeah, people once they hear what the reality of this stuff is, they usually are like, "Yep, I'm good with this, and I'm not good with that."
I had one more question.
Yeah.
It might be along the lines of not being sure what to put on the invitations. But What advertising and marketing do you guys do?
We don't have the budget to really advertise,
Okay.
but I don't know where or how I would even do that because, again, how do I explain this in 30 seconds?
Yeah.
So I go to networking groups and do things like this. I've been on podcasts. Our website has blogs that Erin and I have written and that we've posted from other people. And really, it's just word of mouth and connecting with people. When I get done with networking events, I email everyone that I got business cards from and set up a time to talk over coffee or lunch and just explain a little bit more about what we do. I do these info sessions a lot, and it's super exciting when people call me and say, I heard about you from so-and-so, would you come and do an info session for us? Yes! Yeah, and if anybody wants to just drop $1 million in my lap so I can advertise, that'd be great. I'm not waiting for that, but...
But you still need that catchphrase.
I know, medical education and planning, I know, but
It's hard
like...
to put on a postcard.
It is, and like, you know, and I've done focus groups and I've done SurveyMonkey on different combinations of words, and I've thesaurus. I mean, I have an English degree from before I was a nurse, so you know, coming up with different combinations of words and putting it out there and letting people vote, you know, that's yielded some stuff too, but still nothing. I need that ringer, and Sips and Wishes invokes a lot of questions. Our LLC is actually called Before the Casket because we have sick sense of humor. But the party itself is, I know, the party itself is Sips and Wishes, but I want to do more with Before the Casket, so I have other future things that I want to provide as services. So that's why Before the Casket is kind of our umbrella name, but even that doesn't, because people are like, oh, I have my funeral planned. Great, we're Before the Casket. So, yeah.
Building your email list is key to your advertising because if you're on Facebook, they change the algorithms. It's crazy time, but build your email list and then start putting your blogs out on that. You know, do like something like Perk does. Okay, I'm going to subscribe to it. I'm not going to. But I mean, I'm a huge one that if I read something, I forward it to somebody else.
Okay.
And they can connect by subscribing to your.
Yeah, I did that at the beginning, and I didn't feel like it was yielding much. But if I keep doing it.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I mean, everyone that you talk to leader-wise, that's how they're building their business because they have control over it.
Yeah.
Where they don't with the other.
How do you get around firewalls? Because I don't always know if my emails go through because it's a Gmail account, but it's from a company versus a person, and so I get worried that.
It goes to spam. That happens with everyone.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's luck of the draw.
Okay.
It's luck of the draw.
Okay.
You just gotta fiddle with.
Play with the odds too. Yeah.
Play with, you know, the subject line.
Okay.
Rearrange words, and sometimes they'll go through the firewall. Sometimes.
Oh, okay. So it's less about my email address being from a company and more about like what the subject line is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Having a lot of links in your email too can flag it, so.
As no good?
Yep.
Okay.
Plus also on some of the services, once they subscribe, it'll come in that you have subscribed. Be sure and check your spam list to see if it's going there.
Okay.
So you've got that follow-up too.
Okay. Yeah.
Last thought, I think you're really onto something as far as like, this is extremely like pertinent information, that there's so many things closely adjacent to what you're talking about that I can think, oh, well, I know that. Like, I don't really have an interest in that.
Mm-hmm.
But in the vein of like the dark humor
Yeah, I
and
like that.
what tubes, what holes, like that whole thing just makes you kind of go, what? As far as like a email list or any of that exposure of the slogan that you're looking for in that vein to kind of make you go, what are you talking about? And just to have that further explanation, even for a sentence, to be like, oh my gosh, I've never even thought about this.
Okay.
That's part of our process with financial planning is estate plan is essential. So like, what's the point in putting any of your financials in order if your medical power of attorney or your financial power of attorneys aren't in place?
Mm-hmm.
So this is an element that I've never even, I do this all the time.
Yeah.
I've never thought about it.
Yeah,
So,
or the step you didn't know you needed.
right.
Yeah.
100%. So figuring out how to expose people not to, like evoking that, because immediately when you first started talking about it, I was like, oh yeah, we do all this estate planning. And explain it, and I was like, we don't do any of it.
Okay.
Yep.
So,
Yeah.
very cool.
Yep. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, we've come up on our time today, so thank you everybody for the conversation. Next week, Molly Hicks will be here. She is a brand strategist. So thank you, Amy, for.
Thank you so much. Thank you.